This is Ryan O'Dowd at the Black Hand Communique, and today I'm hopefully going to make a short but sweet one, and it's going to be about the basic guaranteed income. It's a fascinating idea that has its origins in Thomas Paine's ideas, and it was really advanced most by a man named Henry George, who was an economic philosopher, who was kind of a bit of a bridge between capitalists and socialists, but not really. I'll explain that later. Here's the point. The basic premise of the basic guaranteed income is this. Everyone within whatever nation that is printing whatever type of money gets X dollars no matter what. Now, the first objection is going to come from people that consider themselves to be on the right, but they haven't really thought about what freedom actually is. They're going to say, well, you can't just give people money for doing nothing, because that is going to disincentivize work, because work is so fucking special for some reason. Anyway, to address that, I'll say, so what? That's not really the point. You know, there's a reason that the welfare programs exist, and that's the fact that the people are going to be poor, and there will be people at the bottom no matter what, no matter how rich your country is, because it will stratify itself at a rate and a ratio such that there will always be poor people. But I want you to know something. This is not actually a left-wing proposal. It's more of kind of the closest form of mutualist anarchy that can exist while still maintaining a state system. Because the reason that people are getting money isn't because they're owed it or they are entitled to it. Well, actually they are. It's not because the government is this wonderful thing that's giving them a service, like the socialist idea that, oh, the government needs to provide for your needs, like the government's some kind of saint or church operated by saints instead of a government operated by ruthless, ambitious plutocrats like it actually is. No, the idea is this. It's based on a free market principle. But when I say free market, I don't want you to shy away if you're a left-winger and think, wait a second, where's this guy going? And I don't want you to think, well, hold on, maybe I'll agree with this no matter what if you're conservative, because it's really, there's a division between conservatives. If you consider libertarian type of conservative, then there's definitely a division between those two things. But then more importantly, there's a division between libertarians. Actually, there's lots of them. But one is what you call a left libertarian who still wants a communist society, but they want it to be a voluntary and free communist society. They have the right libertarian that want a pure capitalist society. And the point is this. When I call myself an anarchist because I believe in freedom and I believe in resistance to all forms of oppression. And I think that's really the definition of what an anarchist is someone who is actively resistant to all forms of slavery and repression. And in my view, it's no matter what they are. So I think that unfettered capitalism can easily become a form of oppression. And I also think that state socialism definitely can become a form of oppression. And pretty much any combination of state, lack of state, or thereof can find a way to make itself oppressive or tolerate oppression or have oppression continue to exist in it anyway. But the point is to get people further away from being oppressed and make them more free and have more self-determination at the same time. A very famous anarchist named Bakunin once said that freedom without socialism is inequality and oppression. Socialism without freedom is slavery and oppression. So you need to provide for people's basic needs while also increasing the amount of freedom that they have at the same time, which is something the government can't really do. They usually only do one at the decrease of the other, because the very existence of the state itself is institutional oppression and institutional inequality, no matter what state you have. That's another foundational anarchist thought, is that the state itself is oppression. The state itself is classism. It creates a division between people and this other organization. Even if you're in a communist society, then your two classes are the government and those that aren't in the government. No, so the state itself is oppressive. Now, here's how the basic income guarantee works and why it's libertarian or anarchist. markets, if they're going to operate properly, have to be free. And what I mean by that is trade in goods has to be allowed. Because you can't just go around pointing guns at people and taking things from them and giving them to other people. Because if you do that, people are going to lose hope and faith in life itself, and they're going to stop producing. You know, they're like, well, if I produce it, someone's going to fucking take it from me. You know, like, and that's the bad form of communism, basically. On the other hand, if you let markets be dominated by individual market agents, which is the bad form of capitalism, then you have monopolies that form over specific goods or even specific regions. And then everything is dominated. Basically, it's a monarchy over a product. If you want to think of it that way, the monopoly owner, it becomes a king of a product. You know, Carnegie, Vanderbilt, these people were kings. They had complete control over one specific product. And that gave them an inordinate amount of power, even though they came up out of the market and they used and utilized market forces like the way that Caesar would utilize an army and a general to become the king of a state. They utilized market forces, understood them, and manipulated them, so they too became kings. Only it was over a good instead of being over a landed area. Although it's related to landed areas because they had to own lots of property in order to do it, but their kingdom was a little bit more sporadic and spread out, so it wasn't so obvious the fact that they were basically monarchs. So the basic guaranteed income is a just compensation that the state gives each individual operating under its oppression. We're still under state oppression, and let's not get ahead of ourselves about that, but it's a just compensation for the business deals that it made before you were even born, and that it's making with members of society right now that currently make the market less free. Because like Carnegie with the steel, owning all the steel, that makes the market unfree. When you have one market agent controlling a good, then it's a monarchy over a product. And so if that's going to be the way it is, and of course the real total anarchist ideal is we get rid of all of it, we get rid of all the monopolies, all the monarchies, all the states, and we just operate on a voluntary cooperative basis with one another out of mutual aid and out of reciprocity, you know, the golden rule and all that. But while we're still living in a state system, we can use a pragmatic approach to get closer to the ideal of anarchy, which is freedom and less oppression. If the government and these corporations are going to cut these deals with one another all the time anyway, which are inherently limiting the market, cutting you out, and creating labor theft. If you're a left-wing person, the corporations with the state together create labor theft. The state itself creates oppression by making demands on people, by making them do things, by limiting their market choices. And at the same time, the market and the corporations operate like an old king and the fucking landlords would over all the little peasants that we are. And so at least if they're going to do that, then we should give everyone a just compensation for the fact that their market is being limited, their labor is being stolen, their rent is getting taken out of their pocket at such a rate that they can't afford to buy their own place. The banks using usury and lending out loans to constantly take more from people because they don't have enough to live now, so they need a loan. They take a loan and then more is taken from them in the future. If all that shit is going to happen, thereby limiting the freedom of the market for everyone and stealing your labor from a left-wing perspective, then the least we can do is offer a just compensation to each and every individual for the shady business deals that the fucking government and the corporations are doing all the time anyway. So that is what the basic income, guaranteed income is a compensation for market agents, much more powerful than people like me and you, creating economic circumstances that are mathematically verifiable, that are provable to limit our options compared to theirs. And if we have to, if you want to look at it from a communist point of view, if we're going to work for them, because we have to work for them, then we should get paid more. But if you want to look at it from a free market point of view, if we are going to be consumers, if we are going to operate in a market that they operate in, and they are doing things that are inherently making the market less free, then at least we should get a cut. We should get a cut. And I recommend you listen to the Crass song, Do They Owe Us a Living? Because the answer is, of course they fucking do. This is Ryan O'Dowd of the Black Hand Communique saying words.